Prince William have a favourite toy?
Jamie, he loves his koala bear he's got. But he hasn't got anything particular. He just likes something with a bit of noise. He got a plastic whale that throws things out the top, little balls.
They tried to hide it. They hoped you'd never find out. But after 30 years, Princess Diana's secret letter to William has finally been exposed. And what's inside will leave you speechless. Royal insiders are panicking. The palace doesn't want you to see this. Diana knew something terrifying was coming, and she made sure William would know the truth.
I knew a fair bit of it, mainly because she'd come back with all these stories and full of excitement and just passion for what she'd been doing. And I sort of used to sit there as quite a sort of surprised little boy at the time, sort of taking it all in. It was, I think, that infectious enthusiasm and the energy that she had that really rubbed off on me for causes such as this.
What she wrote in those final lines will shake the monarchy to its core. This isn't just a letter, it's a warning from beyond the grave that changes everything we thought we knew. The story begins quietly in July 2004 at a London auction house. There were no major headlines at the time, no dramatic announcements, just a simple catalogue listing for a collection of handwritten letters from the late Princess of Wales. These weren't official documents or carefully worded statements approved by palace advisors. They were personal notes, written in Diana's own hand, addressed to someone she trusted completely. And among them was a letter that spoke about Prince William in a way that revealed the depth of her love and her hopes for him. The auction was organised by a firm specialising in historical documents and memorabilia. The letters being sold had belonged to Violet Collison, a woman who had worked for the Spencer family for decades. Violet wasn't just a housekeeper, she was a confidant, someone who had watched Diana grow from a shy young girl into the most photographed woman on earth. Over the years, Diana had written to Violet regularly, sharing her thoughts, her worries, and her joy. These letters captured moments that the public never saw, moments that revealed the real person behind the princess. What made these letters so special was their authenticity. Unlike the polished statements released by Kensington Palace or Buckingham Palace, these were unfiltered glimpses into Diana's emotional life. They showed her juggling the impossible demands of royal duty while trying to be a present and loving mother. They revealed her frustrations with the constraints of palace life and her determination to do things differently when it came to raising her children. One of the earliest letters in the collection was dated July 8, 1981, written just weeks before Diana married Prince Charles. At that point, Diana was only 19 years old and about to step into a role that would change her life forever. The wedding was being planned as a global spectacle with millions of people expected to watch. The pressure must have been enormous, yet Diana's letter to Violet carried a light-hearted tone. She wrote about how everyone around her was racing to finish last-minute preparations, but joked that the bride was keeping her cool. It was a small moment of levity that hinted at the warmth and relatability that would later make her so beloved. But as the years passed and Diana settled into her role as Princess of Wales, her letters began to reflect deeper emotions. The excitement of a young bride gave way to the realities of royal life, the isolation, the scrutiny, and the struggles within her marriage. Through it all, one thing remained constant in her correspondence: her devotion to her sons. Diana wrote about William and Harry often, sharing updates about their milestones, their personalities, and the ways she was trying to shield them from the harsher aspects of royal existence. One particularly touching letter was dated June the 21st, 1989. It was written on official Kensington Palace stationery and addressed to Sergeant George Plum of the Special Escort Group. Diana was thanking him for organising a special motorbike display for Prince William's 7th birthday. In the letter, she expressed genuine gratitude for the joy the event had brought to William and the other children who attended. But what made this letter even more meaningful was that it wasn't signed by Diana alone. Next to her signature were the small, unsteady scribbles of William and Harry, who had added their own names to the thank you note. It was a simple gesture, but it revealed something important about the way Diana was raising her children. She wanted them to understand gratitude, kindness, and the value of acknowledging others. For those who had followed Diana's life closely, these letters weren't just sentimental keepsakes. They reignited conversations about her complicated relationship with the royal family and her determination to raise her sons in a way that felt true to her values. Previous generations of royals had raised their children with formality and distance. Nannies and tutors handled most of the day-to-day care, while parents often maintained a more ceremonial role. Diana rejected that model entirely. She insisted on being a hands-on mother, involved in every aspect of her children's lives. According to Ken Worf, who served as Diana's personal protection officer for several years, she went to great lengths to ensure that William and Harry experienced life beyond the palace walls. She took them to amusement parks, let them eat at McDonald's, and even rode the London Underground with them. These weren't publicity stunts designed to generate positive headlines. They were deliberate choices made by a mother who wanted her sons to grow up with an understanding of how most people lived. Diana believed that despite their royal titles and the privilege that came with them, William and Harry needed to see the world as it really was. At the same time, Diana was acutely aware of the challenges her children would face growing up in the public eye. She herself had struggled with the relentless attention of the media from the moment her relationship with Prince Charles became public. She knew firsthand how invasive and damaging that scrutiny could be, especially for children. So she worked carefully with palace officials to arrange controlled photo opportunities at key moments, such as the first day of school or family holidays. In exchange, she asked for periods of privacy where William and Harry could simply be children without cameras following their every move. It was a delicate balance, and Diana didn't always succeed in protecting her sons from unwanted attention. But her efforts were genuine and constant. Andrew Morton, who wrote an unauthorized biography of Diana that later proved to be largely based on her own cooperation, described how deeply she worried about the impact of media pressure on her children. She had experienced the toll it took on mental health and self-esteem, and she was determined to minimize that burden for William and Harry. By the time these letters resurfaced at auction in 2004, William was no longer a young boy. He was 22 years old, studying at university, and beginning to take on more public responsibilities. The timing of the auction's discovery was significant. It had been 7 years since Diana's death in a car crash in Paris, and the world was still processing the loss. The royal family had undergone significant changes in that time, partly as a result of the conversations Diana had started about modernizing the monarchy and making it more accessible to ordinary people. The letters offered something that no official biography or documentary could provide. They were Diana's own words, unedited and unfiltered, revealing her thoughts in real time as she navigated the challenges of her life. For many people, reading excerpts from these letters felt like hearing Diana's voice again. The warmth, the humor, the vulnerability, it was all there on the page. And at the center of so many of those letters was William, the son she had prepared so carefully for the enormous responsibilities that awaited him. What began as a routine auction catalogue entry became something much more meaningful. These letters allowed people to reconnect with Diana's memory in a deeply personal way. They showed her not as a fairy tale princess or a tragic figure, but as a real person, a mother who loved her children fiercely and tried her best to give them the tools they would need for the unique lives ahead of them. Diana's approach to motherhood was revolutionary within the context of the royal family. When she gave birth to Prince William on June 21st, 1982, she was just 20 years old. The transition into motherhood came quickly, and it transformed her in ways that surprised even those closest to her. But unlike the royal mothers who had come before her, Diana was determined to do things her own way. She didn't want to be a distant figure in her children's lives, appearing only for formal occasions while staff handled the actual work of raising them. She wanted to be present, involved, and deeply connected to every aspect of their upbringing. From the very beginning, Diana made choices that raised eyebrows within palace circles. She decided to breastfeed William, a practice that had been virtually unheard of among royal mothers for generations. The tradition had been to use wet nurses or bottles, maintaining a certain physical and emotional distance that was considered proper for women of their status. Diana rejected that notion completely. She also insisted on choosing William's name herself, rather than allowing the palace or senior royals to dictate the decision as had been customary. These might seem like small matters, but within the rigid structure of royal protocol, they represented significant acts of independence. Perhaps most importantly, Diana pushed back hard against the expectation that royal nannies would be the primary caregivers. She understood that staff would be necessary given the demands of royal duties, but she made it clear that she would be the one tucking her children into bed at night, comforting them when they were upset, and making the important decisions about their daily lives. This hands-on approach was almost unheard of in royal circles, where previous generations had maintained much more formal relationships with their children. Diana's commitment to being an involved mother became even more apparent just weeks after William was born. Prince Charles had official duties in Australia that required an extended trip. According to long-standing royal tradition, infants and young children stayed home in England under the care of nannies and household staff while their parents travelled. Diana refused to accept this arrangement. She insisted that William accompany them to Australia, even though he was only a few months old. It was a clear statement of her priorities. No royal obligation, no matter how important, would come before being there for her son. As William grew from an infant into a toddler, Diana continued to defy royal expectations at every turn. When it came time to consider his education, the traditional approach would have been to hire private tutors who would teach him inside the palace. This had been the standard practice for royal children for centuries, keeping them isolated from other children and ensuring they received instruction deemed appropriate for their future roles. Diana wanted something completely different. She enrolled William in a local nursery school near Kensington Palace, a decision that shocked many observers. Parents and staff at the school were often surprised to see Diana herself dropping William off in the morning and picking him up in the afternoon. She would chat with other parents, attend school events, and involve herself in the everyday routines that most mothers took for granted, but that were almost unprecedented for a princess. This wasn't a symbolic gesture or a one-time photo opportunity. It was her regular routine, a quiet but powerful statement about the kind of mother she intended to be. But Diana's efforts to give William and Harry a sense of normalcy extended far beyond school choices. She was determined that her sons would experience life as ordinary children did, at least as much as was possible given their circumstances. She understood that they would eventually have to step into roles of enormous responsibility and public scrutiny. Before that happened, she wanted them to understand how most people in the world actually lived. So Diana took her sons to McDonald's, not because she had a particular fondness for fast food, but because she wanted them to experience something that millions of children did regularly. She took them on the London Underground, navigating the tube system like any other parent travelling with children. She brought them to theme parks and let them wait in queues alongside other families. She made sure they were surrounded by people who didn't bow to them, who didn't address them with formal titles, who simply treated them as children. These outings required careful planning. According to Ken Worf, who served as Diana's protection officer, she was meticulous about choosing the right times and locations to minimize security concerns while maximizing the opportunity for genuine experiences. Sometimes she would visit places during off-peak hours. Other times she wore subtle disguises, simple changes to her appearance that allowed her to move through public spaces without immediately attracting attention. She wasn't trying to trick anyone or create a spectacle. She simply wanted her children to have moments where they could be kids, without the weight of their royal status following them everywhere. Diana's determination to teach her sons empathy and awareness went beyond casual outings. She made a conscious decision to involve them in her charity work, believing that they needed to understand the responsibility that came with their privilege. One particularly significant moment came when she brought William to visit Centrepoint, a charity dedicated to helping homeless young people in London. William was still quite young at the time, but Diana felt it was important for him to see firsthand how some children lived. At Centrepoint, William met teenagers who had grown up without stable families, without proper education, and without a safe place to sleep at night. For a child who lived in a palace, surrounded by every comfort imaginable, it must have been a jarring experience. But that was exactly Diana's intention. She wanted William to understand that not everyone had the advantages he did, and that his position came with an obligation to help those who were struggling. She wanted him to see these young people not as statistics or abstract concepts, but as real individuals with their own stories and dignity. Diana's approach to exposing her children to different realities wasn't about making them feel guilty for their circumstances. It was about building understanding and compassion. She believed that if William and Harry were going to eventually represent the monarchy and the nation, they needed to truly understand the lives of the people they would serve. This couldn't be learned from books or lectures. It required direct experience, conversations with people from all walks of life, and a willingness to step outside the protected bubble of royal existence. The impact of Diana's parenting philosophy became increasingly apparent as William grew older. Teachers and staff who interacted with him noted his unusual awareness and sensitivity for a child of his age and background. He seemed to genuinely understand that his circumstances were exceptional and that most children didn't live the way he did. This awareness, carefully cultivated by his mother, would later become one of his defining characteristics as an adult. Diana's methods weren't without controversy within royal circles. There were those who felt she was being too radical, that she was undermining important traditions and failing to prepare William properly for his future role. Some worried that by exposing him to ordinary life, she was making it harder for him to accept the extraordinary responsibilities he would eventually inherit. But Diana remained convinced that the opposite was true. She believed that understanding the real world would make William a better future king, not a worse one. Her former protection officer, Ken Worf, later spoke about how deliberate Diana's choices were. These weren't impulsive decisions or publicity stunts. They were part of a carefully considered approach to raising her children. Diana thought deeply about what kind of men she wanted William and Harry to become, and she structured their experiences accordingly. She wanted them to be kind, to be aware of others' struggles, and to use their positions to make a positive difference in the world. The dedication Diana showed to her children's upbringing was remarkable, given everything else she was dealing with during this period. Her marriage was struggling, the media scrutiny was relentless, and she was navigating the complex politics of royal life. Yet through all of this, she remained focused on being the mother she believed her sons needed. She attended their school events, wrote thank you notes to their teachers and caregivers, and made sure they knew they were loved unconditionally. Looking back at this period, it's clear that Diana was engaged in something much larger than simply raising her own children. She was challenging fundamental assumptions about what royal parenting should look like. She was demonstrating that being present and emotionally available wasn't incompatible with preparing children for lives of public service. In fact, she was arguing that this kind of engaged parenting was essential if the monarchy was going to remain relevant and connected to the people it represented. Through her love, her defiance of outdated expectations, and her unwavering commitment to her son's well-being, Diana didn't just change how one royal family raised their children. She began a conversation about empathy, accessibility, and the true meaning of service that continues to shape the monarchy today. By the early 1990s, the cracks in Diana's marriage to Prince Charles had become impossible to hide. What had once been presented to the world as a fairy tale romance was now clearly a relationship in crisis. The tabloids were filled with speculation about affairs, separation, and the future of the royal couple. Behind the scenes, life had become extremely difficult for Diana. She was dealing with personal heartbreak, intense media pressure, and the complicated politics of life within the royal family. But through all of this turmoil, there was one constant that kept her grounded: her sons, William and Harry. As her marriage deteriorated, Diana poured even more energy into her role as a mother. She was determined that whatever happened between her and Charles, their children would be protected as much as possible from the fallout. She made deliberate decisions about their education and upbringing, carefully selecting schools that would provide not just academic excellence, but also emotional support and a sense of normalcy. William attended Wetherby School and later Ludgrove, both known for their nurturing environments and their ability to provide privacy for high-profile families. Diana didn't simply drop her sons off at school and hope for the best. She maintained close communication with teachers and staff, making sure they understood the unique pressures William and Harry faced. She wanted to ensure that within the walls of their classrooms, her sons could experience something approaching a normal childhood, where they were judged on their own merits rather than their royal status. School became a refuge of sorts, a place where they could be students first and princes second. In December 1992, the situation reached a turning point when Prime Minister John Major stood before Parliament and announced that the Prince and Princess of Wales had decided to separate. The news, though not entirely unexpected given the months of speculation, still sent shockwaves through Britain and around the world. For Diana, it marked the beginning of a new and challenging chapter. She was no longer living with Charles, but she was still navigating the expectations and restrictions that came with being part of the royal family. And she was doing all of this while trying to be a steady presence for William, who was 10 years old, and Harry, who was only 8. The challenge of co-parenting under such intense public scrutiny was enormous. Every interaction, Every decision about the children's schedules or activities was potentially fodder for tabloid speculation. Yet Diana remained deeply committed to being actively involved in her sons' daily lives. She attended school events, cheered them on at sports competitions, and made sure she was available whenever they needed her. Teachers and staff from that period later described her as an exceptionally engaged mother who never let royal duties overshadow her responsibilities to her children. Diana also maintained her habit of writing personal thank you notes to teachers, coaches, and others who worked with William and Harry. Many of these handwritten notes have since appeared at auctions, and they reveal the same warmth and genuine appreciation that characterized her public interactions. She understood the importance of acknowledging the people who helped care for her sons, and she made sure they knew their efforts were noticed and valued. As the separation dragged on, the public nature of the royal marriage breakdown became increasingly painful. In June 1994, Prince Charles participated in a documentary where he admitted to being unfaithful to Diana, though he claimed it had only happened after the marriage had irretrievably broken down. The admission was shocking, even to those who had suspected as much. For Diana, watching her husband discuss their failed marriage on television must have been devastating. Diana's response came more than a year later, in November 1995, when she sat down for an interview with journalist Martin Bashir for the BBC programme Panorama. The interview, which lasted 38 minutes, was watched by over 22 million people in the United Kingdom alone. It was one of the most explosive moments in modern royal history. Diana spoke with remarkable candor about her struggles with bulimia, her feelings of isolation within the royal family, and her difficulties with depression. She discussed the breakdown of her marriage and the challenges of living under constant public scrutiny. But what resonated most deeply with viewers was Diana's discussion of her children. She spoke about her hopes for William and Harry with obvious emotion and sincerity. She wanted them to grow up with more than just an understanding of royal protocol and duty. She wanted them to develop emotional intelligence, to be able to understand and connect with people from all walks of life. She talked about taking them to visit homeless shelters and teaching them about the realities that most people faced. Her vision for their future wasn't about maintaining distance and formality. It was about using their positions to genuinely help others. The interview had immediate and far-reaching consequences. The royal family was reportedly furious about Diana's decision to speak so publicly about private matters. Within weeks, Queen Elizabeth II took action. After consulting with senior advisors, including the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Prime Minister, she wrote letters to both Diana and Charles urging them to proceed with a formal divorce. The message was clear: the situation had become untenable, and it was time to bring it to an official end. For Diana, this directive was devastating. According to her former butler Paul Burrell, who later wrote about his years of service to the princess, Diana had hoped she might still have some place within the royal family, even if her marriage to Charles was over. She had wanted more time and space to figure out what her role might look like, but the Queen's letter made it clear that a clean break was necessary. Diana felt pushed out, as though the institution she had tried so hard to serve was now closing its doors to her. The divorce negotiations moved forward over the following months. Lawyers worked out the details regarding finances, property, and crucially, arrangements for William and Harry. Both Diana and Charles wanted to remain active parents, and they worked to create custody arrangements that would allow both of them to spend significant time with their sons. Finally, on August 28, 1996, the divorce was finalized. Diana received a substantial financial settlement. She kept her apartment at Kensington Palace, and she retained the title Princess of Wales. However, there was one change that cut deeply. Diana lost the formal styling of Her Royal Highness. This might seem like a minor technicality to outsiders, but within the rigid structure of royal protocol, it carried enormous significance. Without the HRH designation, Diana's position in the formal hierarchy changed dramatically. According to the rules of precedence that governed royal interactions, she would now technically be required to curtsy to members of the royal family, including her former husband and eventually her own sons. Paul Burrell later recounted a particularly emotional moment when Diana discussed this situation with William. The 14-year-old prince could see how much the loss of her title hurt his mother. It wasn't about vanity or status in the conventional sense. It was about what the change symbolized. a formal severing of her connection to the institution she had tried to serve, and the painful reality that protocol would now place her below her own children in the official hierarchy. According to Burrell's account, William tried to comfort his mother during this difficult conversation. He reportedly told her not to worry, promising that when he eventually became king, he would give the title back to her. While William has never publicly confirmed this exchange and the palace has never commented on it, the story has become one of the most repeated anecdotes about the relationship between Diana and her eldest son. Whether the conversation happened exactly as described or not, it speaks to a larger truth about their bond. William understood his mother's pain, and he wanted to reassure her that she would always matter to him, regardless of what royal protocol dictated. With the divorce finalized and her official royal duties behind her, Diana entered a new phase of her life. She stepped away from over 100 patronages and charitable organizations that she had supported as Princess of Wales. Instead, she focused her energy on a smaller number of causes that were deeply meaningful to her personally. These included Centrepoint, which worked with homeless youth, Great Ormond Street Hospital, which provided care for seriously ill children, the Royal Marsden Hospital, which specialized in cancer treatment, the National AIDS Trust, and the Leprosy Mission. Even though she was no longer a working member of the royal family, Diana's commitment to humanitarian causes only intensified. She was now free to pursue the work she cared about without needing approval from palace officials. But her top priority remained unchanged: her sons. Diana structured her entire life around William and Harry's schedules. She made sure she was available for parent-teacher meetings, she attended their school events and sports matches, and she remained actively engaged in their daily lives. Friends and staff from this period consistently described Diana as a devoted mother who was always reachable when her children needed her. Despite no longer having the full support system of the royal household, she made sure that William and Harry never felt neglected or abandoned. If anything, the time she spent with them became even more precious now that she had more control over her own schedule. Yet this period was also marked by a growing sense of vulnerability. Without official royal security and the protective mechanisms of the palace, Diana often felt exposed. She worried about her safety in ways she hadn't before. Some of these concerns were documented in personal letters and notes that later came to light. In one particularly chilling letter dated October 1995, Diana expressed fears that there might be plans to harm her, specifically mentioning concerns about a car accident. The authenticity of this letter has been verified by multiple sources, though its contents remain controversial and have been the subject of much speculation and debate over the years. Whether Diana's fears were justified or whether they reflected a heightened sense of anxiety brought on by the stress she was under remains uncertain. What is clear is that she felt increasingly isolated and concerned about her vulnerability during this time. Despite these pressures and worries, Diana never stopped working toward the future she imagined for her sons. She continued to prepare, William in particular, for the enormous responsibilities that awaited him, emphasizing that leadership wasn't about power or privilege, but about service and compassion. Through everything she endured during this difficult period, her love for William and Harry remained the one constant that kept her going. After the divorce was finalized, Diana's life took on a different rhythm. She was no longer bound by the same protocols and expectations that had governed her existence for 15 years. In many ways, this newfound freedom was liberating. She could choose which causes to support, where to travel, and how to spend her time without needing approval from palace officials. But this independence also came with a price. Without the institutional support and security that came with being a working royal, Diana often felt isolated and vulnerable in ways she hadn't anticipated. The period following her divorce was marked by contradictions. Diana was finally able to pursue humanitarian work that truly mattered to her without bureaucratic interference. Yet she struggled with the loss of structure and protection that the royal system had provided. She maintained her residence at Kensington Palace, but it sometimes felt like living in limbo, neither fully part of the royal family nor completely separate from it. Through all of this uncertainty, her relationship with William and Harry remained the anchor that gave her life meaning and purpose. Diana continued to structure her days around her sons' needs. She made sure she was present for important moments in their lives, from school events to casual time at home. Staff members and close friends noted that despite the turmoil in other areas of her life, Diana never wavered in her commitment to being an available and loving mother. She wanted William and Harry to feel secure and supported, even as the world around them continued to change in dramatic ways. But Diana's concerns about her safety continued to grow during this period. The letter she had written in October 1995, expressing fears about a potential car accident, reflected a deeper anxiety about her vulnerability. Whether these fears were based on genuine threats or stemmed from the paranoia that can develop when living under constant scrutiny remains a subject of debate. What cannot be disputed is that Diana felt watched, exposed, and increasingly uncertain about who she could trust. Despite these personal struggles, Diana threw herself into humanitarian work with renewed passion. In January 1997, she traveled to Angola with the International Red Cross to campaign against landmines. The trip generated some of the most powerful and enduring images of her later life. Photographs of Diana walking through a recently cleared minefield, wearing protective gear, and looking directly into the camera became iconic symbols of her commitment to bringing attention to global issues that many people preferred to ignore. The landmine campaign was particularly meaningful to Diana because it aligned perfectly with her belief in using privilege and platform to help those without a voice. Landmines were killing and maiming thousands of people every year, many of them children, in countries that had long since ended their conflicts. Diana understood that her celebrity could draw international attention to this issue in ways that traditional advocacy could not. Throughout these months of intense humanitarian work, Diana remained focused on preparing William for his future role. She had always been clear about wanting him to understand leadership as an opportunity for service rather than an exercise of power. According to people close to Diana during this period, she often spoke with William about the responsibilities that came with his position. She would tell him that being born into privilege meant having an obligation to help those who were less fortunate. The summer of 1997 brought new changes to Diana's personal life. She had been spending time with Dodi Fayed, the son of Egyptian businessman Mohammed Al Fayed. The relationship attracted intense media attention, with photographers following their every move. For Diana, who had lived under media scrutiny for so many years, the constant pursuit by photographers was nothing new. But it had never felt more oppressive than during these final months of her life. On the evening of August 30th, 1997, Diana and Dodi were in Paris. They left the Ritz Hotel shortly after midnight, hoping to evade the photographers who had been following them throughout the day. Their car entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel at high speed, pursued by paparazzi on motorcycles. The car crashed in the tunnel with devastating force. Dodi Fayed and the driver, Henry Paul, were killed instantly. Diana was critically hurt, with internal injuries that proved fatal despite emergency treatment. In the early hours of August 31st, 1997, Princess Diana was pronounced dead. She was 36 years old. The news of Diana's death sent shockwaves around the world. In Britain, the reaction was overwhelming. Thousands of people gathered outside Kensington Palace, leaving flowers, notes, and photographs. The outpouring of grief was unprecedented, revealing just how deeply Diana had touched people's lives. For William and Harry, the loss was incomprehensible. William was 15 years old, on the verge of young adulthood. Harry was just 12, still very much a child. The funeral took place on September 6th, 1997, at Westminster Abbey. The image of William and Harry walking behind their mother's coffin, their faces etched with sorrow, became one of the defining moments of that terrible week. In the years since Diana's death, her influence on William and Harry has become increasingly apparent. As they grew into adulthood and took on their own royal responsibilities, the lessons their mother taught them shaped the way they approached public service. William in particular has spoken about how his mother's example influenced his understanding of what it means to be a royal in the modern world. The letters that emerged at auction in 2004 offered a poignant reminder of what had been lost. They showed a mother who had been completely devoted to preparing her sons for the challenges ahead. Diana never got to see her sons reach adulthood, never witnessed them build their own families, or champion causes she would have been proud of, yet her influence remained undeniable. Through the values she instilled, the experiences she provided, and the love she gave so freely, Diana shaped the men her sons would become.